Monas. I remember years ago, Geshe Taike, at one point, was commenting that he said a really knowledgeable Geshe, a really good Geshe, you take a single text and interpret it in 10 different ways. And each of them valid, each of them useful, relative to this person, this context, that context. Quite an impression on me, because he was a very erudite. His love of practice, but also just his love, he was like voracious. Really. He's voracious. Like, if he ever had any spare time, he would just be over the texts. Just learning more and more and more. He just never stopped being a student. Always more to learn, always more to learn. And yet, he wasn't just a scholar. Nobody can fake. Try it. Go ahead, try it. Sit for 3 hours, cross-legged, without moving, and not be screaming. So, I'm not a good Geshe, I'm not a bad Geshe, I'm not a Geshe at all. But in terms of this very sharp, simple approach that Panchen Lozang takes for Vipashyana, which I've not seen anywhere else. It may be everywhere else, I'm not very knowledgeable, but it really struck me in this one. You're familiar with it now, and I think you've all memorized it. And that is, you're probing into, attending to the phenomenon in question, whatever you're focusing on. You're looking at how does it appear, how does it exist, and how are you apprehending it. Just so I'd like for there to be great clarity on this point, right? So you know exactly what the words mean. Because if the conceptual understanding is fuzzy, it's going to be very difficult to have a very sharp practice if your conceptual understanding is fuzzy, vague. So I think we should never, disparage or underestimate the importance of having a very clear conceptual understanding. Sometimes they say, my understanding is only conceptual. That's a good start. That's where we need to start, right? Understanding from hearing, and then reflection, and then you're ready. When you have that crystal clear, very sharp, tested, like a blade you put on the fire and tested. Okay, now I'm ready to meditate. And so, one term there that readily invites multiple interpretations is this ne-luk, the way of being present, the way of abiding, the way of existence, nature of existence. And clearly, an undebatable point is that phenomena, such as David, for example, David exists, his way of existing conventionally, relatively, is as a human being and so forth, and as an ongoing stream of a sentient being who is caring about suffering and so forth, so as described earlier. And that just doesn't go away. No matter what we do, no matter what deep insight we might have into emptiness, it never negates that. David never disappears, never negated, is untouched, untouched. And so when we had that conjunction, just by the sheer sequence of the retreat, where we were looking into Panchen Lozang's teachings on Vipashyana, but in the morning we were practicing loving kindness, it didn't seem to me on that occasion the most optimal to go for the ultimate mode of existence. So Brendan, for example, Brendan's ultimate mode of existence, that's easy, empty of inherent nature, has just purely nominal existence, nothing more than merely a conceptual designation. But if I'm leading you into a practice of the cultivation of loving kindness, and now I say, now here it is, focus on all sentient beings as conceptual designations and wish them well, it might be a bit of a stretch, right? So better to focus on, well, how is Brendan? How is David? How are they present? And yes, we can say from this ultimate perspective, as a mere name, mere label, mere conceptual limitation. But it's also true. Is there an ongoing, let's just come back, is there an ongoing person throughout the course of the life, from lifetime to lifetime? And the answer is yes. Yeah. So, but now we're going deep into Vipassana territory. So last time, that is when I first introduced this triad from Panchen Lozang, then I highlighted this nature of existence, the way of being present, emphasize the relative nature of it, that although we appear in various ways, sometimes angry, compassionate, generous, and stingy, myriad appearances, agreeable and disagreeable, underlying that. So I'm repeating myself a little bit. But I don't take any of that back. I think it's all true. But now we're going for the gold. It's Vipassana time. It's time to really try to penetrate into, by way of ontological probe, ontological analysis. What is the way the person, the individual, the entity, how does it actually exist? Right? And in this regard, I'd like to set up the next meditation briefly, kind of front-load it a bit. But I'm going to interpret it differently. So I can't do it in 10 different ways, but 2 different ways. I think I can handle that. And that is when you see these 2 terms paired, Niluk, or Netsul, and Nangsul, Nangluk, the way of appearing and the way of existing. When you see that normally in Madhyamaka literature, it's very clear what it means. How it appears, that's conventional, relative, right? How it exists, well, this is where the whole issue of the contrariness, the incompatibility, how appearances mislead, right? Because as I gaze over at Wendy, Wendy appears to be from her own side. She appears to be over there. Big lie, right? As His Holiness says very poignantly, when I saw him do this, it left a big impression. He said, especially you jab your finger, like that, especially if there's some attachment or anger, some mental affliction operative, and we start poking our fingers at people. Like, Wendy, didn't I tell you to clean up a floor yesterday? What's wrong with you? Like that, something like that. It's kind of, there's some energy behind that, right? That which you're pointing your finger at, that's what doesn't exist. Right there. He said, Zuguzuksa, what you're pointing your finger at, that's what doesn't exist. It's not that Wendy doesn't exist, but Wendy, there from her own side, self-supportive, autonomous, really over there, really objectively. That's exactly what doesn't exist. But she certainly seems to. So when speaking of Niluk, it's that sheer absence of existing from her own side. That's the Niluk. That's the ultimate mode of existence. That's what this meditation is all about, to realize the emptiness of all phenomena. So now we go to the meditation. I'd like to just put a little bit of different twist on it. I suspect it's probably what Panchen Lozang had in mind when he paired these 2, way of appearing, way of existence, and again, it's almost always highlighted, look, they're different, they're really, really different. And then how do we recognize the difference? Not simply believe it, not just simply get the right answers at the end of the book, you know the right Madhyamaka answers. How can we, and without getting caught up in a lot of philosophizing, cogitating, reasoning, logical arguments and so forth, all of which has a place. I'm not disparaging that at all, but he is giving us a more slender route here. Really slender as in just like an arrow hitting a target. Boom, just like that. Very Mahamudra, very Dzogchen. And so, here's a method. I think it's what he had in mind. First of all, attend to how phenomena appear. In the scene, let it be just the scene. So just try to get good signal-to-noise ratio. That is, when you're attending to appearances of the world around you, by way of the 5 physical sense doors, appearances arising in the mind, just try to get and this is where your shamatha is going to be enormously helpful. The more you have, the better it will be. Try to get a good, clear signal, really low noise. Just see what's appearing. See the appearances as appearances with as much freedom from additives as possible. Any type of additives at all. Just naked, right? So try to get a good take on that, like gotcha. The Tibetan word is nyepa, ascertain that. Right? But now in the practice we're about to do, we're not going to suppress or, marginalize or peripheralize the conceptual apparatus by which we're making sense of the world. So it's more in the mode of settling the mind at its natural state. Open the Pandora's box. If the mind want to talk, let the mind talk. If it want to go blah, 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 can let it go blah, blah, blah. Let it come out with a lot of nouns. It's going to do it anyway, but don't make it shut up. A lot of nouns. Nouns refer to objects, right? Objects have qualities. They're out there, they're in here. It's people, it's trees, it's plants, it's thoughts, it's emotions, it's me, it's mind. Those are all nouns, which means they have attributes. And so, when we allow the conceptual mind off the leash and let it designate a way, as he keeps on saying, but he must really mean it, Panchen Lozang, from the state of equipoise. Remember? From the state of ease. Always saying, you did get the shamatha, right? You did get it, because you need that now. From that, you did do, you didn't skip it, did you? So from that, our best approximation, what can we do? We're here for 8 weeks and not for 8 years. From that, observe your objectifying phenomena. Not just seeing appearances, but seeing Wendy, seeing Daniel, seeing Brendan. They're not just appearances. They're people. Very importantly, they look back. Appearances don't look back. Right? And so, as you designate, then this is where the really intelligent introspection comes in. This is where we're definitely into Vipashyana territory. We're not just trying to stabilize the mind here. And that is, as you designate this or that, anything that comes up, and you can do it deliberately. You don't just have to wait for it to happen spontaneously. You can, from that state of equipoise, deliberately bring someone, something, some place, some object or some subject to mind, a noun, bring it to mind, designate it. And then watch very carefully. First of all, almost like holding and working memory, you've got a clear sense of the way appearances are arising. They're just empty appearances, right? It's kind of easy to see that. They're just appearances. The color, the smells, the sounds, the tastes, the thoughts, the images. It's kind of like, yeah, they're just images arising in the space of awareness. They're just empty appearances. That's not too hard. It's when we start objectifying things, that's when the reification comes in. So when the conceptual mind does designate, here it is. You ready? Because this is the part to remember. When you see that your mind, your conceptual mind is objectifying something, identify what's the basis of designation of the designation. Okay? So I said before, you remember, in settling the mind in its natural state, I said it's enough if I gaze over at Maria's face, just as an analogy, I gaze over at Maria's face, and somebody asks me, "Is Maria? Do you know where Maria is?" "She's right over there." And that's perfectly fine. So that's enough. To see Maria, I don't really need to see anything more. I don't need to see her back or her right shoulder and so forth. Face is enough. It's a perfectly good basis of designation for saying Maria's right there, right? Right? That's fine when you're settling the mind in its natural state. You're observing the mind by way of whatever comes up, thoughts, mental images, desires, emotions, space of the mind. They're all suitable bases of designation for the mind. But now we're not just satisfied with that. When an object comes to mind and you designate, then see what is the basis of designation. For right now, when I look over Maria, I just naturally look at the face, and then I naturally say, "Oh, there's Maria," right? But then when you're doing this in meditation, then note, here comes a really important point, note, her face was my basis of designation for designating her, by which I identified her. She's there. And her face is completely empty of Maria. You could take every atom of the face, collectively, individually, the shape, the colors, and so forth. You could do a full-scale, total, complete analysis of her face. And nowhere in any aspect of the face, individually or collectively, will you find even the tiniest trace of a person. The face is empty of Maria. The basis of designation, this is the crucial point, the basis of designation is totally empty of the designated object. As a cairn, a pile of stones, is totally empty of a person. Right? He said that, right? As a striped rope is totally empty of a snake. The appearance is empty of anything you impute upon it. That doesn't mean, though, that Maria doesn't exist. But right now, we're distinguishing that there's the mode of appearance. It's an appearance of a face. I've just designated, oh, there's Maria over there. I know. Apprehend means, how do you identify? How do you know? What's your way of identifying the mode of apprehension? So it can be perceptual, but it also can be conceptual. Where is she? Oh, she's right over there. I remember Maria. That's conceptual, embedded in a conceptual framework, right? And so, note, again, you're in the scene, just the scene, the mode of appearances. Then note how you identify whatever comes to mind, any noun, could be a verb for that matter. And then note the basis of designation. And holding in mind that, yes, I am apprehending Maria. I'm not delusional here. I'm apprehending someone who does exist. So that's not delusional. But now, how does Maria exist? Well, she's not there objectively. She's not there from her own side. And the basis upon which I've designated her, identified her, imputed her, named her, is completely empty of Maria. Just as when you gaze at your reflection in a mirror, and the mirror is 2 meters in front of you, and you see the reflection 2 meters behind the surface of the mirror, there's absolutely nothing there 2 meters behind the mirror that in any way corresponds. I mean, there's just nothing there at all. It could be granite, it could be anything, but what it is totally empty of that reflection. There's no reflection there. And yet you can photograph it. And the camera lens will tell you, that's where it is. That's the remarkable part. I discovered that one. Millions of people know this, but I discovered it when I was 20. Photographing. I was in Germany, I was photographing very close to the surface of a little pool outside of Göttingen. And I was focusing in with my lens 6 inches away from the surface of the water. And I was focusing in on the reflections of the trees on the far bank. And I wanted to get the trees in focus. And lo and behold, I was starting at 2 feet or 6 inches, and then, oh. I'm looking right down there, and the image is 40 feet away. Quite a surprise. And that's where the trees come in focus when you snap the shutter. That's where they're focused. They appear there. In a manner of speaking, they are there. You can photograph it. And of course there's no image down there. In the mud, 30 feet below the surface of the water, there's an image? I don't think so. And yet that's where it is. And it's not anywhere else. So there's the point. Is it clear? How things appear, that's straightforward. But you do need to get a clear signal. Because if we don't, and this is where bare attention comes in. This is where the Vipassana movement is so popular, for good reason. Just bare attention, just be aware of whatever's coming up, here and now, not judgmental. They're trying to get a good signal. That's valuable. It's not yet Vipashyana, and it's not Shamatha, but boy, it's laying the good groundwork. If people would actually move from there, they would really head out on a path. If they stay there won't be any path at all, generally speaking, unless you're Bahiya, then you'll be something special. And so, mode of appearances, got that. And then observing the basis of designation, whenever you identify anything, including your mind. Now we're not going to be satisfied. Oh, I saw a thought, that's good enough, I saw my mind. No, your thought is not your mind. A thought's a thought. A thought isn't a mind. An emotion isn't a mind. The space of the mind is the space of the mind. It's not the mind. Otherwise it wouldn't be a quality of the mind, and it's called the space of the mind. Therefore it's not the same. It's not the mind of the mind. It's the space of the mind. And you can continue going there. And every single time there's going to be a difference between the basis of designation and what you designate upon it. And the basis of designation is always empty of that which you designate upon it. And therefore, this immediately follows. Therefore, the designated object does not exist from its own side. If it is, you'd find it. If it is, you'd find a basis of designation which actually is identical to the designated object. Never the case. At least that's the hypothesis. So, I will guide this meditation, but now it's a very different take, right? And we're not going to be worrying, right now, but I don't want to dismiss all sentient beings. Don't worry, we'll get back to them tomorrow morning. They'll be there, And we have to be bold when we're looking for the middle way. Don't be afraid to bounce off of extremes. A number of you, when you met with me one-on-one, you said, in your last meditation, it was like you were banging me against the wall, this way and this way, just beating you up, bang, bang, against this wall and that wall. Yeah, I'm good at that. I do my best. And why? Because you find the middle way only by banging off the extremes. I don't know anybody. They say, middle way, I'll just go there. And you just see the two extremes stream right by you. Oh, thank goodness I'm not there. Again, they're always exceptional people. But the rest of us, we find the middle way by saying, that was substantialism. I won't call it eternalism. But when we're really feeling the heart open and the moisture of loving kindness, of affection really is flowing, will there be a bit of reification of the people we're attending to? Probably so. Yeah. Don't worry too much. That's a time if you slip over into a bit of substantialism. Okay. Cost-benefit analysis. It's okay. On the other hand, when you're really going for Vipashyana, and you're saying, there's Lim, but she's not there. She's not really there from her own side at all. she's empty appearances, the matrix of empty appearances, then the limb starts to slip away a little bit. Or maybe I start slipping away and getting a bit afraid, like if she doesn't exist, probably I don't exist either, and then grab my collar or something. Right. If you get a little bit afraid when you're doing this practice, good. Some of you told me, I got a little bit afraid. I smile. Good. If you're not at all afraid, you're either doing really, really well, or you're not. Get a little bit afraid. Okay? All clear. Tutto, how do you say? Tutto chiaro? Tutto chiaro. Molto bene. Good. Find a comfortable position. I'll beat up your mind, but at least your body should be comfortable.